If you're thinking of studying in France, or if you already got your admission letter, I know what you're thinking next. Is it the right decision? Is it worth the money? Will I actually survive living in France without being fluent in French? In today's video, I'm going to break down the real pros and cons of studying in France based on my own experience as an international student. So let's get started. Let's start with the best part. It's very affordable. Compared to the US, UK, or even Canada, France is way more budget friendly, especially if you choose a public university or if you choose to do an apprenticeship, which is an alternate in French. Even the top business schools in France are cheaper than any other business school in the US or UK. Private business schools would cost you around 17,500 for a year. This is just an average. It can also go up to 41,000. And the public business schools are free for European or French students. And for international students, the fee is already quite subsidized. Now, if you're going for a business degree, the second point will be important for you. France has some of the top ranked B schools in Europe, like HEC, ESSEC, ESCP, and many more. The curriculum is international, the programs are taught in English, and in most of these programs, they allow you 6 months to do an internship, which helps you to set foot in the corporate world before getting your first CDE or your first full-time job. And I have mentioned this already in my other videos, but the ranking of schools really matters in France especially. Before you decide on your business school, you should research the ranking of your specialization as well as the ranking of your school to see if they're well ranked or not. I talk more about this in this video above, so feel free to check it out after this one. Now, you might not be surprised to know this, but France is very student friendly. There's free public health insurance, which is the assurance maladie, which is not only for the French people, but also for all international students as well. You also get housing aid, which is called CAF, and you also get a subsidized Navigo pass, which is essentially your monthly travel pass. It costs around 90 euros for a month usually, but for students it's around 40 euros. There are also many other discounts at restaurants, museums, galleries. For example, you can enter Louvre at a really subsidized rate if you are a student. There are also a lot of libraries in Paris. This one, for example, it's in the top 10 biggest libraries in Europe. The yearly pass is only 20 euros for students. Now, if you're in France, you'll have a lot of opportunities to network. You'll have a lot of international people in your class, so you'll essentially meet people from everywhere. In my specialization itself, we had more than 10 or 15 different nationalities. And since in business schools, there are a lot of group projects, so you'll get an exposure to different ways of thinking. Since France is so multicultural, there are a lot of neighborhoods that have international food, so you can basically try everything. Now, if you're planning on staying in France after graduation, then this point is for you. Already know that you can have access to the APS visa after you do your master's in France. APS is basically a visa that lets you stay in France for up to 2 years to look for a job. And once you get a full-time job, you convert this APS visa to a work permit. Or if you earn more than, I think, 42,000 euros per year, then you can apply for a talent passport, which is a residence permit which is very flexible. So unlike other countries, France really gives you an opportunity to look for a job in France and to work in France, basically. Okay, now let's look at the cons. The first, as you might guess, is of course the language. French is hard. It took me 1.5 years to be even confident enough to speak in French and a year more to reach C1 level or even to have professional level of French. And even if your business school will be fully taught in English, but your daily life will be fully in French. All of the paperwork and even your other small interactions in your day to day life, for example, in the pharmacy or grocery store, or if you're at a doctor, for example, will be in French. You can't survive without it because for the first 6 months, I did not speak French at all. I did not even have a A1 level. You can live without French, but I would not recommend it at all because I had some of the worst experiences because I did not speak the language. And I've mentioned this on my channel a few times before, but most of the people here would not be open to speaking it in English with you, especially if you don't even try to speak in French with them. So the first thing that I would recommend is to start learning French before you come to France. And this is why I recommend trying Louvre AI. It is an all-in-one Chrome extension which is designed for international students. You can translate entire web pages into a bilingual format without messing up the layout, which is so helpful if you're trying to actually understand the context. You can also highlight any word or sentence to get an instant translation of both PDFs and images as well. And my favorite part is that it can generate bilingual subtitles on YouTube, so you can learn the language while watching your favorite videos. It's powered by AI and it's completely free to install. I've put the link in the description box below so you can check it out. Thank you so much, Louvre AI, for sponsoring this video. Okay, now the second con will depend on your school. French business schools and universities, they're well recognized in Europe, but outside of Europe, not so much. So even if you graduate from HEC, which is the top B school in France, chances are that it's not well recognized in the US or Canada, for example. So if you plan on staying in Europe itself, then you don't need to worry. In Europe, all of these business schools are well reputed and recognized. But if you plan on going to the US or going back home in Asia, then chances are that your degree or your business school won't be that well recognized. For example, I know that I have way more chances of finding a job in France itself or Europe rather than in India. Because in India, most of the colleges would have campus placements and they would also rank their own B schools higher than European B schools, because Indian B schools like ISB, for example, is a lot more competitive to enter if you compare it to any other French business school. Now, this next point is something that I still kind of suffer with, which is that you can feel really lonely at times, especially if you live alone. You're away from home, probably for the first time. The culture is different, the food is different. So, in the beginning, it might be a bit tough to make friends. Of course, it's always easier to make friends who are from the same country as you are. But if you are in a foreign place, I would really recommend not just sticking to friends that come from your home, because this can really give you an opportunity to learn more about a different culture. And since there would be so many nationalities in your business schools, so you would really have the opportunity to make friends from a lot of different countries. Now, if you're coming from a country where the academic system is very structured, then you might find the academic style of the French a bit vague. The classes are well organized, but they also give a lot of room for your own independent work. So you won't just have pen and paper exams for each and every coursework, but you'll also have a lot of group projects and discussions and debates in class, which was also new to me. Now let's talk about the salary. Salaries in France are not as high when you compare it to the US or Germany, especially when you start. Entry level positions, of course, this will depend on your field and industry, but it can vary between 35,000 to 45,000 euros. And the US, for example, the starting salary is, I believe, 70,000 or 80,000. As you can see that there's a huge difference. So if you're expecting to basically get your return on investment within the first year itself, that will be tough. But also again, as the tuition fee is not that high in France, your salary is also not that high. So is studying in France worth it? If you ask me, then yes. But it would also depend on a lot of points. So firstly, you do get affordable education, European exposure, and opportunity to work long term in the country itself. But the path to reach this stage is not so smooth as it may seem, because the language barrier is quite high. There are a lot of cultural differences, and the administration process for everything basically can be really long. So if you're still deciding on whether or not to come to France, I hope that this video gave you some kind of clarity. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.